Go see your mother. You were only given one. Go see your mother. And you know that you will never have another. Go see your mother. Go see your mom.
Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I am your host, Sadia. This is my mother, Ima. Hey, Ima.
Hey, my little sweetness, and how's my baby boy?
Oh, I guess he's doing okay.
Yeah.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
Busy, tired, exhausted, running around.
Hey, welcome to life.
Oh, yeah. That's just what it is. You get no sympathy and you get to have all these responsibilities. The first 18 years are free. The rest you got to pay for.
Yeah, remember the words of your wise grandfather, what he used to say about sympathy.
Yeah, find the dictionary between shit and syphilis. Yep.
I was going to try to clean that up between you know what, but I.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't know. I can't figure out how I want to label and rate the podcast in regards to the parental discretion. Because I want it for everybody, but some topics go off color and we kind of go on rants. So it's just best not to play this in front of children, but you have about, I would say 35% chance that it'll be, kosher most of the time. You said you wanted to have the topic of technology.
Well, here's what happened. This past week, my car started acting weird where it usually I just keep my keys in my pocketbook. I don't even have to take them out. And I can open up the car door and I can just start the car like that. And it stopped doing that. I had to actually take out my car key manually and put it in the lock and open up the lock. And then when I got in the car, it said no key detected. I'm saying, what is going on here? I've got my keys with me. What do you mean no key detected? So I fidgeted around a little bit and finally I figured out that I could take the car key. If I took the fob, the car key, the whole thing there, and I pushed it against the start button, then it started. So I wasn't sure what to do. And the dealership, I called two dealerships, one that was far away from one that was close. The dealership that was far away from me, the receptionist answered the phone and she said, she goes, you just have to buy another battery for it. And so I said, can I bring it into you? She goes, yeah, we'll just replace the battery. So I decided to call another dealership that was closer to where I was working, the same dealership, but closer. And this person told me, he says, not only do we have to replace the battery, but you have to reprogram your car. The whole thing totally will cost you $700. I said, what? So I asked around, I asked a few people, and they said, that's ridiculous. They said they've had similar problems, and it shows that if your car acts like this, that you simply have to replace the battery. And they told me, a couple people told me, go on YouTube and you can see how to replace the battery very easily. So I went on YouTube and I watched it and it looked pretty simple. I just went to Home Depot. I bought the batteries I was supposed to buy. I haven't replaced it yet, but it just showed how you take the key and you just click, break open the fob and you take the old battery out to put the new battery in and just click back the fob. And that's it, no problems. So I'm considering after I replace it, if everything's okay, calling that particular dealership and speaking to a supervisor and telling him or her how I was almost scammed by you people.
Yeah, they're not going to care and move on. You know that, right?
I never know if enough people complain.
They'll still ignore you and move on.
You think so?
Yeah, because it's especially, I would assume, in Florida, because there's so many elderly people that live there, that there's probably a high chance that these people get these phone calls all the time and they make a quick buck. They're not going to throw that away. They don't really care. The best bet would probably be put them on blast on social media or getting in contact with the local news station and giving them that story and then taking it from there. But calling them up and speaking to their manager and seeing if they're going to change their mind, it's not going to do anything. You got to scare them because it's very frustrating, because when that happened to me, when I first, started with these key fob cars.
Mm-hmm.
I started having that problem too, and I had no idea. And some guys actually told me that like they're gonna have to reprogram it, yada yada. I'm like, that sounds like a lot for something that's very predictable. Like this doesn't make any sense. So
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to a few other people. And they're like, yeah, you could just do it yourself. And I went to a local dealership and they showed me how to do it free of charge, no problem. They just took out a battery. They had a spare one as well, and that was it. And I once I did that, I learned how to change the battery. And this was years ago. I was in my mid-20s.
Well, I haven't done it yet, but I'll I'm gonna try it later on today.
Good, good. But I'm surprised and impressed that you were able to actually figure it out by watching a YouTube video.
Well, actually, what happened was I was asking some people about it. One of my coworkers tried to do it for me, but she said that it's like my fob wasn't opening up, and she was afraid to break it. So I went for physical therapy that day, and I mentioned it to a couple of the physical therapists, and both of them said, "Oh, that they had the same problem, and they just bought the battery and they went on YouTube and figured and learned how to do it on YouTube." And they told me I type in my make and model, my year, the year of my car, and the make and model, and there'll be probably a demonstration of how to replace the battery of your fob in on the YouTube. So as I did that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because that's how I've been figuring out how to handle, ChatGPT and that audio program I showed you when we're trying to make your audiobooks and things like that, where it's just like, if I'm stuck in somewhere, I don't know what to do, I'll just Google it. It's fine. I'll figure something out. And sure enough, like on average, like the answer is pretty accurate and you can
Yeah.
figure out the rest of, the puzzle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing what's available now
Yeah.
just by going on YouTube and typing in whatever problem you have.
What YouTube videos do you normally enjoy?
Uh, One Step Beyond, because
Okay.
I watched that when I was a kid. Me and my sisters used to watch that all the time. It's One Step Beyond. It's the guy's name who's the MC is the John Newland was the MC, and it deals in stories that supposedly have been documented dealing with like paranormal phenomena, and how true some of them are, some of them aren't, I don't know. But I said we did. Remember a few weeks ago, we talked about one story where they actually had the person involved.
Yeah, yeah, we
It turned out
talked
to be
about that.
a famous British actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was World War I, World War II stuff.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, we had a previous episode. So besides that, I feel like you also watch a lot of conspiracy theory stuff.
Yes, no, it depends. I like to watch Mr. Ballin. Maybe I shouldn't watch Mr. Ballin because some of his stories are really horribly sad. So, I mean, some do have happy endings, but most of them don't.
Do you like making yourself cry?
Sometimes I don't know what it is about people in general. Like I was reading an article many years ago when I was like, when I was a kid and I was into the horror movies. Me and my sisters were always watching the horror movies and going to the movie theater and watching all the horror movies they were coming out with. And I was reading an article about why people like scaring themselves. They like sitting in the safety of their own homes or sitting in a movie theater in a comfortable chair and watching scary movies.
I could definitely do a nice, good, scary movie. I haven't done one in a while. Like a nice, creepy movie. Like I've mentioned before, like I can watch a good scary movie. I don't care for thrashers. You know?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny, but like, do you feel like, you're just so, I mean, I would be impressed with the media that we have today compared to when you were younger. Did you ever imagine it that way, or?
No, I didn't. It was well, for my day, the media that we had, that was cutting edge. Like television was the big, like that was like going to the moon. I mean, the difference between my parents' generation and my generation was like worlds apart.
Mm-hmm.
And television was what did that. because in my parents' day, well, they had radio.
Yeah.
Radio was amazing, but with radio, you weren't totally
Invested.
addicted. You could do things around the house. You could knit, you could sew, you could walk around, you could clean the house and be involved in other things or work with your hands and still listen to the radio. But when television came around, my mother said television was this media that just totally, how can I sucked you in. You couldn't do other things other than be plastered watching that TV.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned the idea of being sucked in, because it's like that's the problem a lot of media has today, is that they can't suck you in. And I think it was kind of easy when you were a kid because you didn't have any other distractions than that giant bright screen. And even like today, you can still play a TV. A lot of people put TV shows on in the background as they get work done. They like having it as background noise. But I think it's also with the new. I'm realizing this as I'm talking. Any new invention is going to have a long time for people to adjust. Like, I remember looking at this picture of this little boy and his first time when TV came out, I think in 1940 something, I don't know. And it's a picture of him looking at a TV and his face is just like drawn in, like, oh my gosh. And I think that's also like with today's screens. I mean, it's a problem. I mean, I'm very much against them, but I'm in some way maybe hoping that that people will just be less interested in about like 10 years with screens.
Well, on one of our previous podcasts, I was reminiscing about in 1974, bringing a friend of mine home from, she was from South Africa. And while she had gone to the United States, that's when TV came to South Africa, like around 1973, 74. And I told you about, I think we discussed on the previous podcast, what her reaction was when she saw television for the first time. That she comes to my house. It was dinner time. She sits down. And my mother had a little TV on the kitchen table, and she sits down and she goes like this. And that is exactly how she sat for the next, I think it must have been 5-6 hours.
Oh my gosh.
I said, my mother served dinner, and I said to her, I said her name was Malka. I said, Malka, do you want some fish? And so she looks at me, she goes, fish? Yes. And goes right back to the television.
Oh, wow.
I put the fish in front of her, and she's eating the tea. And I said later on, Malka, do you want some tea? Tea? Yes. Gets back to the kid's screen. And she watched, in those days, television finished at 2 a.m. She watched at the end. They would end television at the night they would have a like a spiritual message that would be given by either a priest, a pastor, or a rabbi, whoever they would choose. They would, it was like an ecumenical type speech, where they're like a humanitarian inspirational message. Then they would have a prayer. Then they would show the United States flag and play the national anthem. Then they would give their call letters, and they would say, W such and such wishes you all a pleasant good morning, because it's usually 2 a.m. when they would sign off. And then they would have the test ban. They would like, not this, but they would like turn it off. You'd hear this beep, and they would turn it off. She watched it till the very end, when they finally had the beep and shut it off.
My gosh.
She comes up to my room and she says, 6 hours of murders, violence. And she said, no wonder your country's having the problems it's having. And then she says to me, but there was one thing that she did notice that did have redeeming value about it. She goes, there was not a single program that didn't mention God.
Interesting.
At one time or another in the program.
Yeah, that's pretty funny, but the idea of just mentioning Hashem, mentioning God, because in the with Israel attacking Iran, the leaders in Israel all got together and broke up the Sefer Tehillim and said the whole Sefer Tehillim before the mission began.
Gosh,
Yeah.
I did not know about that. When did you? When did you? By the where? I'm having a hard time getting really good information from Israel. Where's a good place to go? Like, how do you get these really good, really good information like that?
So what you have to do is you have to go ahead, and I get it from Instagram and Reddit, and it's funny because everyone pokes fun, and it's like, oh my gosh, you get it like this. It sounds so silly, but no, that's the new way of getting information. And I follow certain people that I trust. Certain people that I trust, certain people that I know. It's also like the official IDF on Instagram, a few other official news stations from Israel, so they say things in Hebrew, so I'm able to understand, but it's all in Hebrew. And various other, I would say Instagram influencers or other news stations that have an Instagram account that I trust, and that's where I get all this information. And a lot of times, like, it is accurate. Like I get notifications on Instagram, and literally it takes a whole 24 hours for like the New York Times to post something, and that's what's so wild, because I found out about the Israeli cabinet dividing the book of Tehillim between
That's
them.
amazing that they did that. It was wonderful. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, I got it from the a few other people that I follow, that they're small news people in Israel. So they get their information and they're able to report it right away. They're able to make stuff up, not make stuff up, sorry. They're able to like make stuff happen and know what's going on. And that's what I'm realizing now with the news sources. Everyone's trying to be first. They're not trying to be accurate. And you get a lot of times, I would get like notifications about like something or another, and I'm like, okay, whatever, this is weird. And then I get a few other notifications from other places saying the same thing, and then it'll be like an hour later they redact everything because it was a false flag. They didn't mention it. Yeah. So I know you're on Instagram, but I don't know who you follow or anything. I don't know how often you are on it.
I'm never on it. I got it because when I took a trip to Panama, the only way I was able to communicate with the owner of the hotel where I was staying was through Instagram. Okay. But that's the only reason I got it. Other than that, I'm usually on YouTube. If I see something from our family on Facebook, I'll go there. But I was mentioned to my coworkers from Israel, and I mentioned to her about Arut Sheva. That's all I ever see sometimes on Facebook is Arut Sheva. And she said that Arut Sheva is not necessarily the most popular news channel in Israel. She said something about Channel 12.
Wow.
Being more accurate and more popular. Are you familiar with that? The Arut Sheva? Yeah,
no, Arut Sheva. I don't really go by their news. Again, this is just my personal feeling. I don't like going to news places that use dramatic language often. I think if people use dramatic language, I feel like they have a very strong bias towards one thing or another, and I don't care for it.
What by the way, Arut, does that translate as Channel 7?
Arut Sheva?
Yeah.
I think Arutz. I'm trying to think of what it means. I'm drawing a blank here at this point, but I can just go ahead and figure it out afterwards. But no, I don't think Arutz. Maybe it doesn't mean channel. I don't know.
Station 7, station, Arut, channel, station.
Yeah, I think channel. I think Channel 7, Arutz, means channel. Yeah, so like it was really crazy just getting that information last night, and like it was 10 o'clock at night and people were talking about saying Tehillim and davening,
I was my well, like my coworkers from Israel, so she was on the phone with her relatives in Israel, and they told her it's like Yom Kippur, everything shut down because they don't know how if Iran is going to retaliate or how they're going to retaliate, but the whole country shut down right now, airport, everything.
Yeah, I I don't know that much. I think everything's keeping quiet, but just keep everyone praying and just hope for the best and learn Torah and do what you can.
Yeah. Well, I was passing out. I got I put together a Shabbos candle kit. I always like to carry one with me, and I was going to Home Depot, and I saw this woman. I offered her a Shabbos candle, and she says, "I'm Jewish, but I don't like Shabbos candles." I said, "Well, we'll take it. It's for free. Why don't you take it and light it?" And she goes, "No." And so I said to her, "Why don't you light it? And when you light it, pray to God to help Israel." And the minute I said that, she got a very serious look about her face and took it right away.
Yeah, wow. It's also they're right now, the Israeli Defense Forces right now telling everyone not to post any videos or anything online because the Iranian government's trying to look at social media to rearrange their accuracy. So
there's an old story from World War I that what the Germans would do was after they would shoot off a cannon or something outside, in France, they would send one of them incognito as a spy into the city to buy a newspaper, and he would bring back the newspaper, and the German soldiers would look it over to see how accurate they had been, and if they hadn't been accurate, they would readjust the cannons to be more accurate and do the same thing next day. Send somebody into the city to get a French newspaper and bring it back.
Wow.
So they could see where the shell landed and how close they were to their target.
Yeah, that's why. And I mean, a lot of people are very worried that it's going to turn into World War III or something like that, but I don't think so. I don't really think so. I think it's going to just kind of blow over.
Well, when I was listening to some of the news commentators this morning, they were like, "Wow!" They were cheering. They were saying, "Good for you." They couldn't get over. They said this was like watching a surgeon doing a very delicate surgery. They could not get over how precise and targeted that this operation had been, and they were like really like almost like jumping up and down and so happy and oh wow, yeah, go Israel, like that. And these are Goysha news commentators. They're just cheering and saying, "Yay, go Israel." And I was thinking to myself, I remember in the beginning of the movie Patton,
Yeah.
about General Patton, that they have George C. Scott played him, and George C. Scott gives a monologue, like a speech, like he's talking to some troops at the beginning of the movie, and it was I think it was an actual speech that Patton had actually given, and during that speech, Patton says Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. He says it's like it's in our it's like in an America, it's like it's in the psyche. It's like it's in the psyche of this country. And no matter how the leftists try to bring us down, I'm sorry, I think it's the Americans will always have this like pioneering spirit, this assertive pioneering spirit of wanting to achieve and not settling for the status quo. And like I said, like Patton said, Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser.
I don't know. I'm just watching the news now, looking at everything, and just it's like I was listening to a shiur recently, and it was talking about how in the world everything needs to breathe, and what that means is it needs to have an in and an out. And even though ideally I would love for everything to be positive, there's still a way to understand the negative in a sense that like the negative is is another way to appreciate the positive.
That's it. Is that your quote?
No. That's just
I thought the negative is a way is a way to appreciate the positive. Is that from you? Is that an original?
No, it's a common understanding.
No, I think it's very philosophical.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you got to put it on a bumper sticker.
But yeah, so like when I'm looking at the news, reading the news, it's also some stuff I just don't entertain. A lot of stuff like about all these details of these anti-Semitic attacks and things like that, I just don't entertain myself for it. Like, okay, I get it, it happened. I'm not like I'm not going to waste my time trying to bring down this negativity. All I can do is do what I can, which is do Torah and mitzvahs and be a decent human being. You know, there's really not that much control we have in the situation.
I'll tell you, it's whenever I come across the anti-Semitism, it's like it is so upsetting in that you want to show this person, you would love to prove to this person how wrong they are, and you can't. They just won't buy it. It's like Charlie Kirk. There was something on YouTube where Charlie Kirk was confronted by this very virulently anti-Semitic student demonstrator, and this guy was insanely anti-Semitic. He said the Jews run all the anti-Semitic stuff that Hitler propagated. The Jews run the bank. The Jews run the world. Congress is controlled by the Jews. United States government is controlled by the Jews. So Charlie Kirk looks at me and goes, John Vance's was a JD. He says JD Vance is. I don't think JD Vance is Jewish. he goes, he's not. So the guy said, you might not be Jewish, but he's being controlled by the Jewish lobby. And it's like,
I know.
And everything that Charlie Kirk was trying to point out to this guy about how wrong his thinking was. No, he could not penetrate this guy's mind. This guy it was like a brick wall.
Sorry, my son just walked in. He's holding a cute little stuffed animal that Ruthie brought him from yesterday from the O's game that she went to. And it's the most adorablest thing ever. Oh God, he's awesome. Yeah, so see, our kids just like your kids just spark so much joy into you. It's not even funny. Like, oh, poor buddy. He hurt himself because he was hitting something, and now he's just upset. Oh, it's all right. It's okay, buddy. It's okay.
I remember one time, one of your sisters, when she was maybe about a year old, whatever, was angry that I took something away from her. And she was so angry, she actually bit her own thumb and then started crying.
Yeah, I noticed.
You bit yourself, kid.
My kid does that when he gets very upset. He grabs his hand and bites really hard. Like I don't understand that. Is that like a stress relief? I'm very confused. It's just like
they're angry and they don't know where to let out the anger, so they grab the nearest thing to them, not realizing, hey, this is part of me. What am I doing?
Yeah, because it's just like I would take something away from him, or like I wouldn't give him something that he wants, and he would just get like really upset, and then like he'd like grab his hand and start biting the inside of his hand.
Remember one time, one of your older sisters was like a toddler, whatever. I was using garlic to cook with, and she wanted a garlic, and I tried to explain to her. She was like, not even 2 years old. I'm trying to explain to her, no, it's not good for you. You're not going to like it. And she was crying. I said, okay, you'll learn the hard way. I handed her the garlic. She says, thank you. I said, I wouldn't go thanking me so fast. And she bit into the garlic and went, ah!
It's funny. There's actually a viral video that came out like many years ago. It's this little boy, must be like 2 or 3, like eating an onion, just eating it.
I think I've seen that.
And you hear the mother like that's recording saying, "Are you enjoying that apple?" He goes, "Yeah." "Are you sure it's not an onion?" He's like, "No, it's an apple." "Okay." And like he's like crying and whatnot. It's the funniest thing. It's the funniest thing. Oh my gosh. What other stupid things did we do as kids?
Oh, wow. Stupid. Well, we know about the time one of your younger sisters, without me knowing it, was she 3 or 4, maybe 4? I didn't realize it had actually left the house
Yes, we
Run.
talked about that.
We talked about that, right?
No reruns.
Right? No reruns. Okay. I'm trying to think what others. Oh yeah, your older sister. The first time she was like, maybe 18 months, 2 years old. Her first experience with snow. Had her all bundled up. She goes out to play in the snow, with I think your father or an aunt or whatever. There was somebody outside watching her. I hear later on. I hear her at the door and she's crying hysterically. I open up the door and she's sitting there crying and covered in snow from head to toe.
Wow.
Then there was one of your sisters where she picked up a snowball and she comes into the house crying and holding it. And I said to her, "Drop it."
She couldn't. She couldn't. That's awesome. Yeah.
I think what other stupid funny things.
Kids are so dumb.
Oh, my mother tells me the time that about the lollipop with the ants.
Yeah. No, you didn't tell me.
What?
You didn't tell me.
I ate a lollipop. I picked up a lollipop from the ground that was smothered in ants and ate it.
Ew.
And she, of course, she washes my hands and face, and she sees like ants are going down my throat, whatever. In a panic, she calls the doctor, the pediatrician. The pediatrician tells her, "Oh, don't worry, they'll just come out the other end." And then there was a time one of your sisters swallowed a nickel, and I was changing her diaper. It came out the
You washed it, cleaned it up, and bought bubblegum with it.
Yeah, I mean, I've picked out pennies and nickels and even a quarter one time from your diapers. There's meant to be a whole treasury in there. I don't know.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's just kids are funny. Kids are funny. Just you see the stupidity in their logic and they're upset and like you can't like react to it in the way that you want to. You're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," or "Oh, okay, come here, buddy. You're just doing whatever."
Mm-hmm. Then there was one of your sisters thought she was going to be a chacham. And what happened was I was going to like this like family get together. And so one of your older sisters had to be someplace, somewhere. So I said, "I have an idea." This was with the van. I said, "Just drop me off and then you take the van and I'm sure I can find a ride home with my parents or one of my cousins or whatever." I said, "Okay." So we get to the party and we turn around and one of your sisters had sneaked onto the van rather than staying back home with the babysitter. And she'd been playing, she was dirty, and she couldn't go with your older sisters because they weren't coming back till later on that night. So I said to her, "Okay, I guess you come with me to the party." But she says, "But look, she felt bad because she was so dirty and in play clothes." I said, "Tough. You thought you were going to be smart. You thought you were going to hide in the van. Now you're going to come with me to the party." That I can't, that's what you're going to have to do now. And she was like, I think 5 or 6 years old. She felt like really embarrassed because everybody was nicely dressed. It wasn't fancy, but it was a nice, nice little family get together. Was it tough? Too bad, kid.
What was it in the end? You took her there.
I took her there and she felt embarrassed and too bad.
Yeah, I kind of like that attitude. I think that's where it's like, yeah, like let the natural consequences begin.
Psychologists will say that the best punishment is natural consequences, providing it's not lethal.
Yeah.
But if it's not lethal, that's the best thing is a natural consequence. I can say learning the hard way, as they say.
The short, hard way. Do you remember like learning the hard way when you were a kid?
Oh man, I've learned the hard way many, many times, man. Yeah, especially as an adult, I've learned the hard way.
That's obvious. Talk about from the ages of like 3 to about maybe 12.
Yeah.
Do you remember any lessons you learned the hard way?
The hard way. Lessons learned the hard way. Computer processing. Please wait. Learning the hard way. I'm trying to think. I can't. I'm sure I did, but I can't think of anything specifically. Yeah, about money, about how to there's a certain etiquette with giving money and taking money. Like if someone's paying for something, and you're like the cashier or the person receiving that money. I think we went into that, didn't we, one time? And I was helping my father.
No.
Okay, there was one day that I wanted to help my father on the truck. It was during the summertime. And so he said, okay. So I came with him on the truck. And I woke up early in the morning to go with him on the truck to help him sell fruits and vegetables and other things. And so he gave me some bags of peaches and told me to go door to door from house to house and, sell the bags of peaches. And he told me how much to ask for them. Okay. How many pounds was in each bag and how much to ask for it. So there was a man who, there was this one guy. Well, this one guy wound up buying the bag. What happened was I didn't realize he took the peach off the top of the bag that I was selling, and he was a big, strong guy. I mean, this guy was tremendous. And he took his big hands and actually broke the peach in half, like tore the peach in half and put it in his mouth to sample it and said, okay, I'll buy the bag.
Oh.
Well, all right. Then there was a guy who he was going to buy the bag, and he put out his hand with the money, and I thought he was putting out the whole amount to give to me. So I reached into his hand to take the money, and he grabbed my hand and like squeezed it and shoved it away. And he says, let me teach you how to handle money. And he says, when you're selling something and someone's giving you money, he says, you don't grab it like that. He says, you wait for them to take the right amount of money out of their hand, and they're going to go like this with their hand. When they go like this to give you the money, then you put your hand out and they put it into your hand.
Yeah, I think I remember you telling me that story, but it's fine. It's okay. I'll allow it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Yeah, it's interesting also how parents used to teach their kids, or strangers' kids for that matter, back in the day.
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
Like they really had this attitude of like, yeah, I'm going to manhandle you and you're going to be okay with it. And like nowadays, you even look at a kid wrong, you're going to have so much on your hands. That's right.
You dare hit somebody else's kid or grab someone else's kid, you're gonna have either a lawsuit or you're gonna have an assault charge. You're gonna have that parent calling the police on you.
Oh yeah.
But in those days, you're right. My father remembers when he was a little boy, there was a man who was sitting, I forgot, in the barber shop or something. And my father was little. He was like 8 years old, and he had to get by. And the guy had his foot like across the door or something. And the guy, very smart, elegantly, like in a very smart, elegantly way, said to my father, "Make me." My father listened to "Please move," and he said, "Make me." So my father got mad, and he spat on his leg. And the guy put his leg down and got up, and my father ran. And this guy chased my father into an alley. And when he got a hold of him, he smacked him right across the face.
Oh, wow. Yeah, kids. Ooh.
This was in the 1920s.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But wow, I mean, you do that today, man. Whoa, you're in big trouble. Yep.
Gosh, that's what's so interesting about how far we've come with, parenting skills and social skills and whatnot, and learning how to be appropriate, act appropriately and professionally.
Well, I remember in the 1960s reading the Dear Abby column about a man wrote in saying that a couple of the neighbor's kids had, I guess, walked into his garage or something, and they messed up some stuff. So he decided to teach them a lesson by yelling at them, and then he potched them on the tush. And he says, and his neighbors whose children these were, are really mad at him. And he said he felt that he acted appropriately. So Dear Abby and other people wrote in saying, no, you had no right to smack another person's child. That, what you should have done was go to the parents and tell them what happened.
That's another episode of Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. Thanks for listening to us kvetch, reminisce, and of course, get a little motherly advice along the way. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your favorite Jewish mother or anyone who needs a little guilt in their life. Got a story, question, or just want to say hi? Send us a message. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, call your mother. She worries.